Shakespeare first coined the phrase, and then it reappeared in a classic 1955 movie and a song with the same title. Perhaps you may have heard it. Love is a many-splendored thing. And perhaps it is. Love has many meanings to many people. But in our culture, love is a multifaceted word with many variations. We don't have a shared understanding of love that we can all agree upon. Now, the Greeks had different words for the type of love that it described. Eros, romantic love. Philia, friendship and brotherly love. And agape, unconditional, sacrificial love. But this isn't the case in our English language. We all love our favorite ball team. We love to come home to a warm fireplace on a cold winter night. We love a cool breeze on our forehead on a hot summer day. But is this the same kind of love that we have for our spouse, or our children, or our family, or even our neighbor? I don't think so. Love may be thought of as many-splendored, but it also can be confusing and complicated. But since love is the greatest of the three theological virtues of faith, hope, and love, I think we need to understand it a little bit better. And this is where Jesus comes in. In today's gospel from John, Jesus doesn't talk about love as a many-splendored thing. He gives it to us as a new commandment, to love one another. So what does Jesus mean by loving one another? How do we do this? And is this really a new commandment? Well, let's take the last one first. It's hardly new. Jesus quoted Deuteronomy and Leviticus in the New Testament when he says, love your neighbor as yourself. But the emphasis here is on our human ability to love God and neighbor. The newness is the way we are to love. St. John wants us to understand that we love because God first loved us. The impending death of Jesus is the supreme expression of this love. This had never happened before. This is radically different. This is new. But there's also something else new. Jesus created a group, his disciples, and now us, whose identifying factor is love. Nothing else mattered. Dress, rituals, diet, observance of the law. Love is the distinguishing mark of his disciples. I see yard signs all the time that say, just be kind today, or bumper stickers that say, just coexist. That's all well and good, but we as Christians are called to do more. We are called to love. So what does Jesus mean? Jesus loved selflessly. Human love tends to ask, what am I going to get out of this? What will love do for me? You see, we're always thinking of ourselves. Jesus never thought of himself. He gave fully of himself to those he loved. Jesus loved sacrificially. There was no limit, no obstacle, no demand too great. We think that love is meant only to give us happiness. Well, hopefully and eventually, yes. But we also know that it may entail some pain and some suffering, and maybe even a cross. Well, if love meant a cross, we know that Jesus was prepared to go there too. Jesus loved understandingly and unconditionally. He knew everything about his disciples, just as he knows everything about each one of us. He lived with these guys day in and day out for months. He knew their moods, their idiosyncrasies, their weaknesses, and even their unbelief. And yet he still loved them. Real love doesn't love what we imagine that person to be. It loves what they are. And Jesus loves us just the way we are. And that stands in stark contrast to the love promoted in our modern world that is oh so conditional. And finally, Jesus loves forgivingly. You know, his disciples never really understood him, and when push came to shove, they abandoned him. They were blind. They were slow to learn. Some would say they were cowards, but Jesus didn't hold that against them. But we too were blind. We're insensitive to his workings in our life and his many blessings to us. But for Jesus, there is no failure that he cannot forgive. Now, I am no expert in love. I fall well short of how Jesus wants us to love. So how do we do it? For it's not in our natural inclination to love as Jesus loved. The key, I think, is to see his command to love one another not as simply imitation, but as in participation. It means action. It means putting our love into every one of our real world activities, even the ones we think that are the most mundane and meaningless, especially the small ones. For instance, when someone amongst us gets ill, the person that loves them then starts to do the most menial tasks to serve them and to comfort them and make them feel better. Because that is what love is like. Selfless, sacrificial, understanding, unconditional, unforgiving. Love is not just a many-splendored thing, it's the gift of oneself. So maybe there's another song title that we should be reflecting on today. They know we are Christians by our love. That's the bold new command of Jesus for us that profess to be his disciples. We're saddened today about the current state of maybe how our Christian faith is perceived by the secular world. But is it any wonder, given the toxic nature of our country's politics, our media coverage, our governance, how we use social media to one another, how quick we point the finger, judge, condemn, label, smear, character assassinate, lie, deceive. That list could go on all night. We seem to love only our brand of politics. We love only our type of ideology, or we love only our vision of how the church should look. What about the people that disagree with the way we think of things? We know it's easy to get along with those we like, or those who like us. What about the people we don't like, or those that don't like us? Now, we've been told that the cause is due to our country being polarized, that it's a failure of our democratic process. It's just politics as usual, or that it's fake news. My brothers and sisters, it's not simply a political problem. I believe it to be a grave spiritual problem. And today, Jesus boldly and very clearly gives us the answer. Love one another as I have loved you.